Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and along with some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos, every week we get together to review films, either current or classic, on this show, of course, with a lovable bear twist. We're definitely excited to jump into the conversation regarding this week's movie. We're going to be reviewing Nope, the new suspense film from writer Jordan Peele. Very excited to talk about that. But I got a couple people to introduce before we can get to that movie discussion. So let me bring them on up. Jim Pugliafico is with us in the virtual studio. Hi, babe.
Hi, babe. Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the trip to, is it Aqua Dulce? Is that it? I don't know. Whatever. Um, with you guys talking about this movie. This one's been looked forward to for a long time. So we'll see. We'll see how we all liked it.
Indeed. I know we try to keep our movie talk to a minimum for films that we're talking about on the podcast. So I kind of know a little bit of what you think, but there's a whole lot I can't wait to find out. So.
There's a lot.
Also, looking forward to finding out a lot about what you think, William Lindis. Hey, Will, what's up?
Hey, yeah, first of all, it's great to record with you guys. I know we were just in here last week, but it was after a couple weeks off, so it feels good to sort of be back in that rhythm again. And with a movie that, yeah, I've been looking forward to. We've talked about now all three of the Jordan Peele features on this podcast, so it's nice that we've been able to follow this one filmmaker all the way through. So, yeah, I'm excited to share my thoughts and to hear yours as well. This is going to be a fun one.
Rock on. Yeah, I definitely think we're going to have some great conversation around this film. We'll see if Nope holds up to the thrills and chills and wonderful things we had to say about Get Out and Us. We've got a few folks who are joining us live. Hello, welcome. Glad to see you. Feel free to say hello in the live chat and let us know what you thought of Nope as we get our conversation going. And of course, for those who can't join us live but are here through the magic of digital tape delay, hello, Ciso Delgado. We're definitely not cutting you out of the conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts too. Remember, you can always tweet us. We're just a tweet away at MB Podcast. Jim lovingly handles our Twitter stuff. So if you want to talk about Nope and you're on Twitter, definitely tweet us at MB Podcast or find us on Facebook. Just look for Movie Bears Podcast and hit the thread for this video and let us know what you thought. All of that aside, said, done, signed, sealed, delivered, Jim, Will, are you ready to get into our Nope discussion?
Yes.
Yep.
I knew that was going to be the answer, and it makes my heart so happy. All right. So, for anyone who's unfamiliar with our show's format, we like to talk about films spoiler free for about 10, maybe 15 minutes before we open up a can of spoilers. So, if you haven't seen Nope yet and you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to see it or not, I kind of want to hear someone else's spoiler free thoughts. Don't worry, you can hang with us. We'll give you plenty of warning before we take things into that spoiler territory. So sit back, get your popcorn, get ready. Here we go. Our discussion of Nope. All right. So we on the Movie Bears podcast are big fans of Jordan Peele and his last two films, Get Out, and of course, Us. One thing I wanted to point out for those of you who can see the broadcast, Will, you're wearing a very special shirt today. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, absolutely. So like you mentioned, big fan of Get Out and big fan of Us. And right after Us came out, and they, the Hands Across America 1986 was sort of like a big theme of that movie. And there's even like a little Hands Across America shirt that was like a plot point in that. I went on Amazon immediately and it's like, I did not do Hands Across America. I was 4 when that happened. But I sure as hell have my own Hands Across America 1986 shirt. So it doubles as both that event, and also it's like it's my I love the movie Us shirt.
Thank you, Jordan Peele. That's awesome, Will. So glad that you wore that for the show. I think it makes you the perfect person to kick off our discussion of Nope. If you don't mind, for anyone who's not familiar, maybe just give us a very brief setup of what this movie is, and then let us know, spoiler free, of course, what your initial thoughts were.
First of all, you did hit the nail on the head with the spoiler-free part of this, right? Like, I think there are going to be some movies that it always sucks to be spoiled on a movie, but I think there's some movies that I think it's worse than others on. Like if it's like a historical drama about something that we all understand, kind of like what historically happened there, like like, oh my gosh, Hamilton died at the end of Hamilton. Like,
What?
oh God, you know what? Like, so again, spoilers suck, but there's sometimes when it's not quite as bad. This is the opposite of that one. This one is going to be very, very hard for us to discuss. In fact, I pulled several different film description sites just to find one that was descriptive enough to actually, well, kind of the opposite. Like there were some that were so afraid of saying anything. Like if you look at like Letterboxd and IMDb, the descriptions are like, people see something uncanny. And it's like, it's the residents of a lonely gulch in inland California bear witness to an uncanny and chilling discovery. That's IMDb. It means nothing. It's nothing words.
Or a brother and a sister try to revive their family's, fading horse ranch.
So and so the best one I found so far is the one over on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, I had to dig a little deeper. It's 2 siblings who run a California horse ranch discover something wonderful and sinister in the skies above, and the owner of an adjacent theme park. And then they say something else here that is actually something spoilery. Well, something, that one. So this is, I'll say this much because I think this one is okay to talk about from the perspective of like what we know from the trailers. This is going into it. This is like Jordan Peele's like UFO movie, right? We know that there's something in the sky from the trailers, and that's what this is about, right? This movie stars Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer as those 2 siblings, both of whom are part of a family whose job it is to sort of supply like the horses to like commercials, movies, things like that in California. And after a tragedy in their past, the 2 of them are sort of at odds with sort of what they're supposed to do with sort of their new lives running this ranch versus, living their own lives, that sort of thing. All of that comes into play with Stephen Yen, who is a former childhood actor who has now opened up a ranch nearby to sort of capitalize upon his own fame. And the 2 stories interact with this wonderful and terrifying thing in the sky. I loved this movie. I'm going to say that. I loved this movie. Jordan Peele now is a very heavy 3 for 3 for me. To the point where I struggle very hard to think about which one of these films I like the best. I will say that I think in terms of pure, like the way that this was shot and looks and craft and all of that, this is 100% Peele's best movie. And that's cool to see. Like this is Jordan Peele, not only as a story, like, he's a strong storyteller across all of his films, but I think as an actual filmmaker, I think he's definitely leveling up with each film. Like he has a little bit more budget. He has a little bit more access to things. This thing is shot entirely in IMAX, and it shows. In fact, they even incorporate some new IMAX techniques just to shoot some of the shots that they do here. That's innovative, and it's cool that Jordan Peele has enough clout now to be able to pull that and do that and to pull that into his films. The other thing that's so cool about this film is it incorporates, I think, the horror elements in a very unique way compared to his last couple of films. This film is not just like a straight up horror film. In some ways, it sort of plays off of the riff of like being like a summer blockbuster as much as it is like an actual like straight up horror. And that's kind of cool too, to see Peele sort of flex in different directions while still maintaining true to the types of stories that he's so damn good at. All of the cast delivers, Peele delivers. This is just a delight forward and backwards. And I can't wait to talk in spoilers when we get to that, not just about the film and the details that I'm weaving my way around, but also a lot of the really delicious and juicy themes that this film has, because it's chock full of them. But for now, it's just a massive recommend for me. This is the type of movie that makes me remember why I love watching movies. So huge recommend.
All right, awesome. Well, glad to hear that it tripped your triggers as much as it did. Let's head on over to Jim. Babe,
Wait
how
a
did
minute.
you
You
feel?
said trigger. Is that like a horse reference? Is that like hi ho, trigger or whatever?
There you go.
Whatever.
Hi-Ho Silver with Trigger.
I
Trigger was
figured
somebody's horse.
I know there's at least 3 horses named Trigger in things that we've seen recently. We were watching an episode of Yellowstone last night, and one of the horses was named Trigger. Anyway, we could do a whole podcast on horses named Trigger.
Horses in movies.
We're here to talk about Nope. Jim, what did you think about this film?
Yeah, I like this film. This is a film that one of my first thoughts walking out of this film, and I have many thoughts on this film, but one of my first thoughts on walking out of this film was, I think I need to see this film again, right? I don't know if we'll get back to the theater and see it again, but we'll definitely see it again. I assume at some point when it's released, maybe on streaming. At least I will go back and watch it, because I think it's one of those films where there's so much going on in it. Some of it very, very evident, and some of it not so evident, by the way, by the filmmaking, the writing, that I think a second viewing would maybe cement things a little bit more. As I mentioned, there's a lot going on in this movie. It reminded me of some other movies, and this isn't spoilery, but one of the movies that popped into my brain when I was watching this was Tremors.
Mm-hmm.
It shares some structure, I'll just say, with Tremors. And so that was cool. I love Daniel Kaluuya. I mean, he's got a quiet performance in this movie. He compared, like, if you contrast him with Keke Palmer's performance, they were kind of like, they offset each other very well. And I think I've liked Daniel Kaluuya for a long time. We saw him in what was the name of the film? Will, Judas and the Black Messiah?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the name of it? Loved him in that one. Pretty much everything he's in, I think he's great. Keke Palmer's kind of a new one to me, and I did like her in this. Of course, Stephen Yeun, we know. This movie takes big swings in a lot of areas. It's a lot of different things. It tries to do many things. And my only knock on this movie is I don't know if all those bits, like, there are some totally chilling bits, frightening bits, just like, wow, like, this is amazing to watch, sections. I just don't know if it all sewed together well for me. It's almost like a lot was thrown at the viewers, and I think it's going to take a little bit of work, and that work being a second viewing, to kind of maybe get it all together for me. But still, I think this is worth seeing. I think it's worth seeing in the movie theater. The film is quite awesome to look at. There's some sections of this film that are just, like, incredible. Like, how did they do that? Nighttime scenes, just some great stuff here. I recommend it. I do have some issues. We'll get into more in spoilers, but I'll just say I'm not sure it hung all together. It raises a lot of interesting questions. And it's interesting because we just got done watching Lost, and I kind of equate it to Lost a little bit, because there's a lot of things that are thrown at the audience that this movie, some the movie does answer quite well, and some it just does not. And that's okay. That's probably okay with a lot of people. But yeah, I would say this is a yes for me.
All right, Jim, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts as well. 2 out of 3 so far. For me, I would say I liked this movie, but I didn't love it. And I think out of Jordan Peele's 3 films so far, this is probably, I mean, they're all good movies, but this is probably the lowest in the ranking for me. And Jim, I think the reason that is something that you hit on. This movie does throw a lot at you. It's trying to do a lot of things, and I think just some things fall through the cracks and get a little lost in that sense. Like with Get Out and Us, I feel like the narrative was very strong. I was very connected to the characters and what was going on. I really cared about what was happening to them. It just really kind of swept me up and I was immersed. But with Nope, I was kind of like, okay, well, here's the thing. Oh, look, here's another thing. Oh, it's another thing. Oh, now we've got another thing. And I was waiting for this like Captain Planet moment where like by your powers combined, everything magically comes together. And it just didn't for me. Now that's not to say that's the case for everybody. Will, obviously, you feel a lot differently than I do. But I just, whether it was because maybe I need a second viewing, maybe it's because I just didn't think this one was as strong, it didn't hit as many of the high points for me personally that I think it did for a lot of other people. Especially like watching social media, a lot of people are like, "This is the biggest blockbuster movie that ever happened," and I'm like, no, not really. But
Nope.
I think I was trying not to do that because I don't,
No, I'm sorry.
that's okay. But in any event, I think it is a good film. I think it's absolutely worth watching in movie theaters while you can. Will, you mentioned this was made with IMAX technology. If you can get out and see this on the biggest screen, an IMAX screen, if you can, I think you're really going to benefit from that. I also wanted to call out the sound editing for this movie. There are some things, there's some things. A lot of things happen in this movie, but the sounds are just so on point and phenomenal. From things like dropping out of the sky and like hitting something organic to like the crazy wacky waving arm men, like even the sound of those was like really on point and really cool. So I want to give major props to Jordan Peele and his crew. The sound was such a delight with this film. So good stuff. That's definitely a recommend from me, even though it's not a knock it out of the park film for me. They can't all be, and that's okay, Jordan Peele. But some really good stuff.
Also, if I were to rank my 2 scariest moments in film of this year, I think both of them came from this film. And I think that's pretty exciting too. Like, for a movie that does not lean directly into like a more traditional horror narrative, this is a movie that does remember to be scary as fuck when it presents its scary as fuck moments. And so I wanted to call that out. Like, I was genuinely unnerved in the theater in a way that I have not been genuinely unnerved in probably a few years of movies in theater. Not to say I haven't been scared by movies or whatever, but like this one got under my skin in a very, very particular way in 2 very specific points.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of things that quote unquote scare us, right? You said unnerved, Will. There's a lot of chilling moments in this movie that are put on screen, and you're like, oh my god, like where, like I was so like just locked into my seat, anticipating what was going to happen next. Just some really great stuff in this, and those are the kind of things that I resonate with in terms of whether a movie is scary to me or not, whether it kind of made me feel uncomfortable or really uncomfortable, like some moments in this film did. So kudos to it for that.
All right. Well, I think it's really difficult to talk about this film without going into spoilers, and we've already been talking spoiler free for about 12 minutes. Do we feel good about ripping off that Band-Aid at this point?
Yeah. Can I just say one quick thing? Is that okay?
No.
Oh, all right. 12
Nope.
minutes is it, I guess.
Nope. There you go. You got your nope. Of course you can. Go
I just
for it.
want to say another thing that I give this movie credit for, and other movies that like it is this is original IP, right? This this isn't something that's based on, something we've seen before. So it's fresh, it feels new. It may lean on some things we've seen in other movies before or in other properties before, but it's not, its story is not based on those things. It's its own thing, and it's taking chances in different directions, and I really like that about it.
Rock on. Glad to hear it. All right. Are we good to go with spoilers?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Do the thing.
So we are going to go ahead and head into spoilers for Nope. If you've not yet seen this movie and you value your ignorance where the plot of the film is concerned, this is your time. If you're listening live, we love you, we adore you, but please step away for your own safety. If you're listening to the magic of digital tape delay, there will be some time index stops in the show notes for you. Feel free to go ahead and skip on ahead to plugs if you like. You're not going to want to miss those, and then continue forward from there. But spoilers for Nope are officially fair game. If you're still listening, it's at your own peril. Where do you fellas want to start?
I think I can start with the two moments that scared the shit out of me, because I think that's a fun place to start. The first of which is there is this really cool subplot that sort of ties into one of the major characters' motivations. The Stephen Yen character, when he was young, was on the set of this television show called Gordy's Home, which had a live chimpanzee. And in the fiction of the movie, it was like the last time that a chimpanzee was used on the set of a television show, because one day on the set, some balloons popped. Gordy, the chimpanzee, goes, berserk and kills two of the cast members and mauls a third, and leaving the young actor who plays 10-year-old Stephen Yen's character, whatever, something like that, sort of cowering underneath a chair or underneath a table. And there's this moment as the monkey's going around, as the guy that plays the father comes in and also gets killed, just and all of that's happening. It's one of those like hiding in the closet from Michael Myers or hiding, type moments, but with something more unpredictable, that's supposed to be something that's much more amicable. This like fellow cast member on this television show that this kid's been working with. That moment was truly chilling to me, and the way that it then resolved, not only resolved in a way that I think made sense for the story, but also in a way that it didn't end on a scare and it didn't end on a laugh. It ended on something that disturbed me even more, and I had to then carry that with me through the rest of the film. That was really, really, really cool.
Yeah, Will, just to clarify, are you talking about the bloody fist bump thing?
The bloody fist bump going into the Gordy just getting shot, right. All of that, that's one of the moments that I think is, this movie would be, I would still like this movie, but I don't know that all of it would hold together as well as it did if you took the Gordy stuff out, because it informs so much about kind of why the third act is what the third act is. And that's why I love that so much, and also why I was so fucking disturbed by it.
And I'd like to hear a little bit more about how we do or don't think that kind of ties in, to what happens in kind of the main, I'll call it the main part of the movie, which is really the brother and sister and the ranch and this UFO turned alien, turned right. monster in the sky, which is kind of cool. But I think what made the Gordy stuff stand out for me just on its own was the use of like silent tension. Yeah. Right. Because you have a set that's been decimated by this chimp that's basically gone berserk, and either everybody else on that's still on the set that hasn't escaped is either dead or injured, and it's just deathly quiet, and you just have the chimp kind of bloody and looking pretty ferocious, or even confused, just kind of looking around for its next victim. What did I do? What am I supposed to do? It was sad and horrific at the same time. That combined with some stuff with horses later on in the movie made me think that there's some element of a message here about animal exploitation, or maybe just exploitation in general, but specifically focused in this movie on animal exploitation. I wish they had coalesced that a little bit stronger, but it's there if you could, if it's there if you look, I guess. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it is there. This is a movie where we start off by hearing about the way that Hollywood, it's so there's sort of two parts of it that are sort of like pulled together, like in terms of like the exploitation stuff, right? Like the way that Hollywood itself can sort of chew up and spit out, certain people within it, especially those of color, like we see with the very first actor to ever appear in a film, the jockey on a horse, whose name has in real life actually been lost to history, right? Like, and so they, Jordan Peele crafts a narrative about like
how it's his great grandfather.
It's the great grandfather, but this is someone who's doesn't go down in history, kind of the way that some of the other, great.
But they remembered the horse's name, strangely.
Yeah. Right. So here we see this theme of like control and exploitation all the way through. They thought they could control Gordy, and they obviously couldn't. Boom, the balloons go up and they lost control. They thought that they could control that one horse in the CGI scene early on. Daniel Kaluuya's character is like, hey, like, don't look directly in his eyes, don't do any of this. And the guy does it anyways, and the horse kicks back. Even Jupe, the Steven Yeun character, who should have learned the lesson firsthand, because he saw with his own eyes, front row seat, he saw what happened there. He is the one who decides that he can tame this same monster in the sky for his own means later on. He does not learn the lesson that he's supposed to. And that's part of what I think the big through line of this has to be with. It's like how our need to sort of control animals, specifically in the case here, and in the case of the OJ character, Daniel Kaluuya's character, he has a certain reverence there where he knows to look away. He knows to not look away at the thing. This also ties into kind of the other major part of it, which is like Jordan Peele saying something about kind of like spectacle as a whole, right? Where when there is catastrophe, when there's like all those distractions, like we either have the option to look directly into them and lose sight of the things around us, or to remember to, from time to time, look away and pay attention to the people around us, which plays into sort of like the final moments and why I thought the final scene of the movie was fucking perfect. So yeah, the Gordy stuff, I think if you remove that, it becomes a creature feature. I think with the Gordy stuff in, it weaves sort of like intent and meaning through, kind of from that very first scene, talking about from the beginning when I've got skin in the game and all of that, all the way through the final moments. That's why the Gordy scene works so well for me. It's like, it's the glue that holds the movie together, but in a show don't tell kind of way, if that makes sense.
Is the glue made of horses?
100%. 100%.
It's horse glue.
And thank you for saying that, because I love the hell out of you for saying that. That's good.
There's another tie together, Brad. Nice.
See?
It's there if you look for it. I wanted to talk about how this film also had kind of a thread running through it of appreciation for film and for movies, right? You had, again, supposedly the first moving picture, right, of the jockey on the horse at the beginning. You had the hoodie that Bo's character, Daniel Kaluuya's character, was wearing, which was a crew jersey from a 1980s or 90s movie called Scorpion King, which talked about that. You had the filmmaker kind of towards the middle and end of this movie, who was brought on to try to get footage of this thing in the sky, right? And so there's a lot of, you could tell that Jordan Peele, obviously he's a filmmaker, but there's just something that resonates about movies about filmmaking, you know what I mean? And this one definitely has that in it. But I wanted to get back to a couple of things that aren't really explained that well in the movie. There's the shoe. Do you remember the shoe from like the first scene? There's the
Yeah.
shoe in the Gordy scene that's kind of standing on its end,
Yeah.
and the camera lingers on it for a long time, for quite a long time. It's got one drop of blood on it, and it's lingering there. We see the shoe again, I think, in Jupe's office. I think he either has a picture of it or the actual shoe, like in a little shadow box in his memorabilia, in his office at the theme park. And then we see the shoe again because they do that. There's two sections of that kind of that Gordy scene. There's a longer one toward the middle of the movie. But I'm not so sure what that was supposed to signify, if it was supposed to signify anything other than throwing it at the audience and saying, "Oh, look, there's this weird thing happening in this scene." And yeah, I didn't know about that. And the other thing that struck me as weird was the whole bit about the reflective spheres that was kind of in this movie. There was one that he kind of showed to the horse, and the horse could see its own reflection of its eye. Do you remember that? Like the mirrored ball that he made?
Yeah.
And then there was also the guy on the motorcycle with the mirrored helmet. So that those two kind of quote pun intended, mirrored each other. But I'm not sure what that was meant to be. Especially the guy on the motorcycle. It felt extraneous, unnecessary, and I don't know. I just didn't. Maybe that's a part that I didn't quite understand, why that character was even introduced, why that action set piece even happened, other than to provide a motorcycle to Kiki's character. I don't know. I don't know what that scene was for.
Yeah, this is another scene of spectacle, right? Like we have a couple of different options, or like within the film, like within what Jordan Peele's saying, the way that we deal with things. We can monetize it. We can what's the right word for it? We can sensationalize it, or we can recognize it but not let it consume us. The guy that was on the motorcycle was a TMZ reporter.
Well, they said he was TMZ, but we never really got confirmation of that.
We did, because he had regardless of what outfit he was with, he was filming, and after he falls off the bike, and his like one arm and one leg are broken. What he's saying is like, we've got to get the footage, we got to get the camera. This is a guy who was so focused on the spectacle that it fucking cost him his own life, as did Steven Yeun and like all of the people that were out there sort of looking up. As was Antlers, the IMAX cinematographer,
the movie, documentarian guy,
who died to get the perfect shot. I think it's very much a condemnation of all of those things, and that's why I like the blockbuster analogy as well, because there are parts of this film that feel very reminiscent, especially in the third act, of like Jaws, which was widely considered to be the first blockbuster. And so using and when we think about movie spectacles, we think about blockbusters, right? And so doing like a little bit of like a head nod to the direction of kind of the first one of those, I thought was sort of a neat way to tie that together without it necessarily being like a straight up, like, this is not a Jaws homage by any count, but there are, but you can feel some of that like DNA there.
Well, I mean, like, you mentioned Jaws and the parallels. I mean, how they killed the creature in Jaws is very similar to how they quote unquote killed the creature in this film, right? They had it ingest something that made it explode from the inside, right? And so it is very similar if you think about it. I wanted to talk about that. You mentioned the Steven Yeun scene where he's giving a show. And apparently what he's been doing is he's been buying horses from the Haywards, right? Or maybe from other people as well. Yeah. And kind of using the horses as bait, I guess, for a show centered around this thing that comes in and sucks up the horse, and the audience goes, ooh, yeah, and he just keeps doing that. And that wasn't apparent to me until much later in the film what he was actually doing. This film kind of holds its cards close to its vest a little bit, and maybe that's why I feel the need to go back and watch it, because it probably laid out some breadcrumbs maybe I missed early on. But man, that scene when the creature comes in, goes wild, doesn't take the horse, but takes everything else. Takes Stephen Yeun, takes the audience, and the scene of them like up, the scene of them up inside this creature's digestive tract or mouth or whatever it was, like getting squished and squeezed and screaming. And Brad, you mentioned the sound design in those scenes where you can hear the screams of the people up inside the thing as it moves around. That was pretty chilling. I mean, that scene was fucking awesome in terms of like a monster movie.
Yeah, even in terms of like where people were inside the monster, right? Like some people seem to be higher up the digestive tract, some people were lower. Like it would like phase in and out their sounds based on like their location, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it sounded like somebody was off to the right behind you. Sometimes somebody was off to the left in front of you. It really made you feel like you were in the monster with him, and I thought that was really powerful.
I had a friend who sent me a message after watching this movie, and he said, "So and I won't name him because this is his, but he says I have a kind of a recurring like night terror that matches almost, identically kind of like what they went through in this." And I can understand that because there are a lot of fears that get capitalized there. Obviously, the whole like
Getting eaten
by a creature. There's also the way it was presented. It wasn't like it would suck to be eaten by a monster, but like just like that hard stop on that sentence, right? But like when you think about like the guy, the lawyer who gets bit in half in Jurassic Park, or the woman that gets like demolished in Jurassic World at the beginning when she gets dropped by the pterodactyl, right? Those scenes cut away at the moment of either the instant death from the bite or just like, okay, they're swallowed, now we're on to something else. This one, in following them, it feels so claustrophobic. Like that's terrifying. Like when you watch the one person and she's in there and you can tell she's being crushed and digested and all of that, but she's not dead yet. Holy shit, that is terrifying. Like that's terrifying to even think about and to rationalize. Like, I don't know. Like that was, I mean, yeah, that was the other moment of like nightmare fuel from this movie. Like,
yeah. How about I mentioned like the screams and stuff, right? But then you get like the shower of blood like on the house at the end. That was pretty chilling as well. Like they're inside the house and just blood is like oozing down and gushing down on the house. I mean, that was really chilled me quite a bit.
Yeah, everything from the sound of like, you know, pieces of flesh like smacking down on a hard wooden deck to, the blood running down the side of the house like raindrops. I mean, again, the sound just really comes in clutch here for kind of selling that. And then they did a good job too with just the look of the house being sort of stained red, over the next couple of days after that happened. It doesn't let you forget that this scary, crazy thing happened. A lot of other horror movies, you might have some gore that happens and then you just get away from it and you forget that like this thing happened. And I really have to give this movie props for like creating a sustained and continuous chain of bad shit.
Yeah, there's a spot where in the final climax where it sort of shifts into them like hunting the monster, and they're doing all the different things. There's a scene where I believe it's the Daniel Kaluuya character. He's having to run around the house and run towards something. The house scene where all the blood dripped on it was several scenes in a day ago, right? But not only was like the blood still like kind of like now dried on the wall, and again, it was not like actively dripping, you know, it was like stained on as though it had been on there for a little bit. But the sand and dirt directly around had this like muddy, ruddy, rusty, like stain to it that he just, you know, he ran past. And I just thought, holy shit, that's really cool that they remembered to do that.
Right. Yeah, that was great that they put that like little detail in there. One of the things the movie does not give us, and I think this is maybe one of the reasons why this movie may not resonate for some audiences, is it gives us absolutely zero motivation or for the monster, or origin for the monster, or really anything. It just kind of appears, it terrorizes, it has certain behaviors that we don't understand, and they change throughout the movie. Its appearance changes throughout the movie, and we're not sure why that is. But you're not, if you're looking for that, you're not going to get this out of this movie, right, Will? Or am I just missing it?
You're right, and I think that for me that falls under like, and different people are going to fall different directions on this one, but for me this is definitely like a feature, not a bug, because again it ties into like what they're doing, like the Gordy character, like with any animal, like especially like taming like a wild animal, which is what this was. This was an alien, a monster, whatever, but it was something that we didn't know about. By not knowing its motivations, the fact that like the Stephen Yin character tried to control it and tried to do all this stuff was even more foolhardy as a result of that, right? That's why the Gordy thing was so compelling, is because we don't fully understand why Gordy flipped and did the exact same thing. When the balloon startled him, sure, but what primal element of him made him respond the exact way he did? That's one of the things that I think is so compelling here. I've seen people make some really, really compelling arguments as to what the creature is, and I think that that's a fun exercise, and I would never want to like discourage someone from doing that. One of the most compelling ones I saw was people tying like the sign of like, oh, actually they think it's like an angel, like a biblical seraphim, because if you look at the way the seraphims are described in the Bible, it's like this, and I think that's really fucking cool. But I also wonder if it like hurts the overall kind of theme for me, like the explaining of it. Like sometimes the not knowing is the more effective way to tell the story, right?
The movie doesn't want us to know, right? Because obviously it changes the creature's appearance throughout the movie, right? At the beginning of the movie, it definitely looks like a flying saucer spaceship, right? I mean, that's what that's what the movie is presenting us visually, right? Then at some point it turns into this like, I don't know, cowboy hat kind of thing that comes down from the sky. And then at one point it turns into like what looks like a cat's butt. You know what I mean? Like that's actually sucking things up. And then at another point,
Jim, did you just solve it?
It's a cat's butt. Yeah,
it's a cat's butt.
It's a cat's butt. And then, you know, towards the end of the movie, it looks like this billowing giant butterfly thingy, right? And or like a hot air balloon that's collapsed. But yeah, it changes its appearance throughout, and that tells me that this movie doesn't want me to figure out what this alien is, right? It's just going to keep changing it. It just knows it's a threat, it's spectacle, and that's all you really need to know.
Yeah. I did also really like the there was a neat little thing with the two main siblings here where I really like that even if you take like the monsters and the monkey and the farm and the horses, and you take everything out of the farm, a ranch, you take all of that out of there, and you really just stick with the two lead performances, Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya. I thought they had a really cool story too. You know, you've got the Keith David character shows up at the beginning, and he's like, this dude's got it all. He is a charming, charismatic presenter who knows how to run his animals, knows how to run his business, and knows how to do both of those things in a way that's Hollywood friendly. He passes, and now you've got both of the characters who are missing one of those things. Daniel Kaluuya's character understands the animals so damn well, but he the character, not Daniel Kaluuya, I want to make this point clear, doesn't have like a lot of charisma. Daniel Kaluuya drips charisma, so I think it's a testament to how good an actor he was that he got to play that part down.
That subdued, subduing that charisma for the character.
Right. And Keke Palmer, she's the opposite. She doesn't have the responsibility or the kind of the desire to sort of like settle into one specific thing. She spread herself so thin, but she drips charisma. Like you can put her in front of a group and she just instantly turns on. And by the end of the movie, there's a neat little thing where I feel like both of them have learned something. The Keke Palmer character is the one who at the end is responsible for the final movements. You know, she could have just hauled ass and gotten away, but once she got over to Jupe's thing and she kind of realizes, hey, I can do this distraction, I can do this thing with the balloon, she sticks it out. She sticks it out to try to take the photo of it, but even there at the end, instead of like staring at the photo that she's just taken or staring at the corpse, the one thing that she wants to look at is her brother who comes riding up. And then what he's got, he looks more comfortable in that final moment than he looks at any point in the movie. You know, he comes riding up on his horse. And I love that the fact that both of them are now more complete than they were before through this ordeal. And I think that's cool from a character growth and development perspective.
But is he really there, or is she seeing what she wants to see?
I've heard that theory. I think that that's a fair one to explore. It's one that it's not my theory. Like
I initially thought he was there. But
I think he's there.
Theory. It makes an interesting theory.
So you think he is there or a ghost?
I think he is there. I thought he is there from the very beginning. But I saw that somewhere and I'm like, that's interesting.
It's compelling. It's compelling.
They haven't shown us ghost people in the whole movie. What reason do I have to believe that we have a ghost person now?
Yeah. And again, from a character arc perspective, just again, that like for me personally, just seeing him like having gone through all of this and used what he understands to be kind of like heroic in that moment and to be comfortable in his like in what he just did. For me, like narratively, it makes more sense that, you know, narrative payoff that makes more sense that he's alive there, because I love that payoff. I love that he was there just so like fucking owning it. Like that was so cool.
Well, guys, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brad.
No, go ahead.
You were gonna say, is there
no,
any
go ahead,
final thoughts?
both of you.
I was just gonna ask for any final thoughts before we
I
move
do
on
have
to
a
plugs.
couple of final thoughts. One is the Jupe character. Will, am I and Brad, am I correct in that he got the Jupe nickname after the Gordy show because he went on to do a different show called Jupiter something?
I think it was the other way around.
Claim.
I think it was the other way around. Like he was a child actor in a show that was like that Jupiter's Claim. And then after that ended, I think he says somewhere that he then kind of moved into that sitcom role, and that's I think that sort of ended his career. But you know, it was sort of like, you know, that, but he was like that's how he got the nickname, was that Jupiter's Claim.
Yeah, I did see did you see the little clip that was going around of like the credits for the Gordy show that actually wasn't in the movie? Yeah. And it showed the different characters, like kind of one of those like cheesy 80s intros, like introduces all the characters, and it introduces them with the name Jupe. So that's why I'm saying, well, it had to be before that he got the name, right? Obviously. And then at one point he describes a Saturday Night Live skit about the incident on the set, right? Like a parody version. And I'm wondering, at the time I'm watching the movie, I'm like, did that really happen? Did they do did Saturday Night Live maybe they did a skit, obviously not based on a real thing, but like a skit where a sitcom goes bad and like a monkey like kills everybody on the set or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't think it's true, but I'm going to have to look that up.
Chris Kattan did used to have those, and I forget the character, but he was like a monkey character. Yeah. The neat thing about that Saturday Night Live thing is it kind of goes back to that whole like thing of spectacle, right? You know, like, you know, they turned this tragedy into a Saturday Night Live sketch. And even at the end of the movie, Jupiter's Claim like where obviously this tragedy happened to this 40 people, and people now apparently know about this in the real world because like real life fucking reporters and stuff were pulling up at the end of the movie when the thing was still kind of falling out of the sky. At the end of the credits, there's a title card for the Jupiter's Claim, now a ride at Universal Studios, like sort of like, like even this kind of gets moved forward into like another, like, we've sanded off the edges and turned it into an
fucking
attraction.
app lied to us, babe.
I know. Apparently there was something after.
The app said nothing after.
So I stick around just to see, and it was literally just a title card. There was no movement to it. It was just a title card that said that. But yeah, still there was something, but it was the least consequential, or least, like, it was literally one frame.
Gotcha. All right. Well, some great discussion around Nope from Jordan Peele. Jim, Will, as always, it was a blast hearing your guys' thoughts. Listeners, hope you got a chance to see this film. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you didn't, that's okay too. No problem there. But definitely looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts on the film. So don't forget, hit us up on Twitter at MB Podcast or Facebook under Movie Bears Podcast. Let us know what you thought of the movie. And Cisco Delgado, if you are listening, I know you mentioned you'd be listening on digital tape delay. Cisco mentioned he had some questions about this movie. And I'm not sure if we helped to answer any of those questions, but if you have any leftovers, send them our way, because chances are pretty good we might be able to assist. So we've got a couple of comments. I want to hit them real quick from Thomas, who says, "Hey guys."
Hey Tom.
You know Tom.
Hey Thomas.
Hey, Tom. Good to see you. Welcome. And Ryan Eaton says, "Thank you all. Was fantastic. Doesn't hurt that y'all are handsome." Ryan, making me blush.
It's a very small thumbnail of Ryan, but he looks quite handsome himself.
He looks pretty cute.
I need to blow that shit up.
We're objectifying you, Ryan. Hope you don't mind. All right, let's move on into some plugs. This is the part of the show where we like to put things that we love, that we enjoy, on your radar so that you might possibly love or enjoy them as well. And Jim, if you don't mind, go ahead and kick us off. What have you got this week?
Well, you guys know I have kind of a soft spot for I'll just say a kink for police and detective procedurals, right? Kind of detective shows. And I found one on Hulu, a new one that I've been watching. It's called Under the Banner of Heaven. This one stars Andrew Garfield as he's a devout detective under the LDS faith, right? The Latter-day Saints, Mormon. His family is very devout, and there's been a murder within the LDS community in Utah that he's trying to unravel. I really like this one. I have a feeling this is based on a book, and with Andrew Garfield, I'm kind of expecting it's probably going to be a limited series, maybe just one season. I don't know. It's a mini series, it's called. So it's probably only 8 episodes, about an hour long. And so, yeah, he's trying to he's trying to solve this mystery of this double murder in his community, and he's struggling with his faith because he's basically investigating his faith. This one's different because it involves a little bit of like LDS fundamentalism, right? And so you're going to learn a little bit about the Mormon faith, about the LDS church and their beliefs, and also kind of the fundamentalist branch of this faith. So anyway, I like it. It's called Under the Banner of Heaven. It's on Hulu. Andrew Garfield is great. It also has Gil Birmingham, who is one of my favorite actors going right now. He's in a lot of shit. He's in what else are we watching, babe, that he's in? We said Gil Birmingham.
He's in Yellowstone.
He's in Yellowstone, right? He plays the reservation chief in Yellowstone. So, yeah, good stuff. Under the Banner of Heaven. If you like police procedurals and want to see more about the evils of organized religion, this one has it.
Get your
Interesting.
sister wives ready.
Get your sister wives. Yeah.
So I haven't watched it, but I looked it up just now because I'm like, oh, see what this is, and yes to Andrew Garfield, but it looks like the creator is Dustin Lance Black.
Oh yeah.
He wasn't the guy that wrote the original, like, I guess, book that it's
No.
based off of, but Dustin Lance Black is known for being he's an LGBTQ like activist. Yep. He was the guy that did the movie Milk. He got a Academy Award for that screenplay, and he also comes from the Mormon faith as well. So I think that's really cool. So I'm doubly excited now. So awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you do start watching it, let me know, because I got some things about this that I would bounce off you to see what you think.
Question: is it plane friendly? Like I know it's like a crime mystery, but like, is it gonna be like some I don't know, like David Fincher, like like autopsy scenes in the first thing that
no, it's not super. It's not super gory. I will say that after the beginning of the first episode, where the crime is kind of introduced, it's not that bad. It's done in very quick flashes. One of those things where they show very quick. So I think it's plane friendly.
Okay, cool.
So cue it up for your next plane ride, Will. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your plug, babe. Let's move on down to Will. What have you got this week?
So I found this very charming movie that is out in theaters right now, but it's also one of those ones that like you can like rent it for $20 because it's in theaters right now on Amazon, right? So which is always nice because sometimes the thing may not be playing near you, or you're just not comfortable going to the movies, or just like getting out of the house sucks sometimes. So it's this movie called Brian and Charles. And it is a movie about this dude who's sort of an eccentric character in this very rural area. You can tell that he's like gone through some sort of like depression. He's mostly like isolated, aside from like a small like few trips into town where people sort of like in his little community like understand and maybe even pity him, but like he still has his own sort of like insular life because he draws into himself and decides that he just wants to invent stuff. So he's inventing all sorts of like really shitty things by like dumpster diving and just putting things together. And then one day he finds this mannequin head, and with like a washing tub and like a glove and just like, again, junk. He decides like, I'm going to build a robot. I'm going to build an artificial intelligence. And so he does. And that's Charles, who wakes up one morning and it's like, hello, Brian, and like it becomes his friend. And so it's this story about these two characters. Like Brian doesn't want Charles, this robot, to like leave the house, and Charles wants to go on adventures and see the rest of the world. And they clash with each other almost the way that like like maybe an overprotective parent and their child might, about sort of like kind of what one is allowed to and not allowed to do. And ultimately, it's a very I know I'm going to be saying this phrase again this episode potentially, but it's a warm hug of a movie by the time that it sort of pulls itself together. Like it's one of those movies that is it's not cynical. It lets you just sort of go along for the ride with it. It's weird. It's a weird movie, but it's very sweet and ultimately like uplifting with the final thing. It's called Brian and Charles. And I think it did like it's done a couple little festival things, but it's just one of those ones. It's on, you can rent, you can go see it for movie theater prices right now, and then probably what that means is that in a month it'll be down to like $3.99 rentals or something like that. But either way, I recommend it. It's really cool.
Cool. The Brian and Charles, the robot and loner movie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That is right.
All right, Brad.
Well, Will, thank you for your plug as well. I want to talk about a movie that I was not super excited to see, but ended up cracking its way onto my top 5 movies of the year list so far. Went to see this movie over the weekend, and it just totally stole my heart in so many different ways. The movie is called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Try saying that 8 times fast. Bet you can't do it without flubbing it up. This movie is just, it's amazing on so many different levels. It tells the story of a shell with shoes on and his shell family living in a house that becomes a Airbnb basically. And I don't think any of this is a spoiler, but the shell ends up becoming the friend of a filmmaker who makes like a YouTube documentary about Marcel and his life with his Nana Connie, and tells the story of what happened to his family. It's a story about, trying to find your family. It's a story about trying to find yourself. It's a story about grief and loss, but also like hope and, just embracing the future. Some really, really cool stuff here. This Shell is played by Jenny Slate from SNL, if you remember her at all. Isabella Rossellini voices Grandma Connie, the Shell in this film. Babe, I
Oh,
didn't know this. I know you're a big fan of Nathan For You. Nathan Fielder plays Marcel's brother Justin in the film.
oh, nice. I thought I
Yeah,
recognized his voice at some point.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's why. And of course, as Tom
Tom,
mentions in the chat, Leslie Stahl,
the amazing Leslie
the
Stahl.
The
amazing
Leslie
Leslie,
Stahl?
the Leslie Stahl.
The
Um,
Leslie Stahl.
so there's just a lot of understated star power with this film. This film took me on a journey, guys, from high highs to low lows to the middle to all ends of my emotional spectrum. I think I cried like 5 times. And this is definitely one that will be getting a regular rewatch for me. I'm a comfort rewatcher. Jim knows this about me. Will, I think you suspect. I love to put movies like this on, maybe once a year, just when I need sort of that like warm blanket just out of the dryer on a rainy day when it's thunderstorming. Just snuggle up with a good movie. This is going to be it for me. So it's called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It's in theaters right now. It might be a little bit difficult to find in your area depending on where you are. It's only showing in one theater here in Tucson. The
Well,
old
yeah.
what?
It's showing at the Loft, which is an independent theater,
Oh, is it
right?
at the Loft too?
It's at
Okay,
the Loft,
gotcha.
but it amazingly is in like a major chain, Cinemark here, but just one location. But yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
So basically what I was gonna say was it's only in one of the like theaters here that a lot of folks like would typically go to and like look at the board and see movie titles and be like, oh, we should go see this.
Yeah.
So you may have to do a little looking around to find out where it's at in your area. But don't sleep on it. It's a good one.
There's a I don't know if this is a spoiler, but there's a moment where someone has like a little like Marcel the Shell tattoo in the movie, and it's just like one of those little like tiny little brandy ones. Like it's not like an intricate like over the top tattoo. It's just like an outline. Like a one of those like $13 Friday the 13th tattoos is what they call 13 on 13. And after we watched the movie, my fiance and I both looked at that and we're just like, we should get those tattoos. So we're probably gonna. At some point do that just because we thought that would be
I can't wait to see that on Facebook.
cute. Yeah, it'll be a little bit. We've got we have other tattoo appointments already booked, so we don't want to over fill our canvases or whatever, but that is in the books.
Will,
Great
I have a
plug.
question for you.
Mhm.
Oh, and thank you, babe. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Will, have you ever eaten a raspberry?
Oh gosh, what's the what was the next line from that? Because
Oh, I forget.
Where does
Yeah.
that go? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, watch
was-
the movie to find out.
it is such a sweet movie.
I was
absolutely
just
right,
so
Brad.
blown away to hear Isabella Rossellini voicing something
Yeah.
again. Her voice is instantly recognizable for me. Yeah, just love her to death.
Mhm.
I have one more little micro plug that's not really like a piece of media, but just wanted to throw a hello up to some friends who I recently had a chance to record something with, which we put up on our Facebook page. But had a chance to sit in with Hammy and Eric from the Find Your Film podcast, and Andrew from Andrew Watches Movie, and we got together to do a little collaboration to talk about it was a spoiler specific cast, like a ending explained discussion for Nope. That's we shared it on our Facebook page, but they're amazing guys, big friends of the show. And so just wanted to let you know, if you want additional Nope content beyond here, that's a good place to look.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this mother up. In case people want to chat with us between now and our next recording, Jim, get us started. Where can people get in touch with you?
Find me on my Twitter account. Come on, people. Get on there. Send me DMs or whatever they're called on Twitter. Talk about my movie stuff. Or talk about movie stuff on there with me at JJP Out West, at JJP Out West. That's my initials, and Out West. Or just find me on Facebook. If you're not already looking for the Movie Bears podcast on Facebook, you can look for me, Jim Poliafico.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. Will, how about you?
Just look around social media for William Lindis. I'm at Twitter and Instagram at whatever code.
We lost Will.
Audio. Start again, Will. At whatever.
Okay.
At whatever.
All right. So just back it up. We'll go back in. Jim can fix it and post if you don't mind, babe. Will, how about you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at whatever cove. You can find me on Facebook, William Lindis, Instagram. Letterboxd. If you're looking for a good place to rank and review films, look for William Lindis there. And I'm on TikTok at the Movie Bear. So yeah, I'm all across the social media, probably more so than I should be, but that's another conversation.
All right. And you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one who has probably some bear, chub, or chaser friends in common with you. Please just send a message first. Let me know you are not a cleverly disguised bot using a hot bear or chub or chaser's picture. Nice try, those bots that almost got me last week. I saw through you. But you can also find me on Twitter at iBradPro, as well as on Letterboxd under the same name. Folks, we've been doing this show for coming up on almost 10 years at this point. Come December, it's going to be our 10-year anniversary. I was talking to somebody at a pool party over the weekend who was like, I can't believe you still do your movie podcast. It's been like a decade of listening to your show. And I was like, that's so crazy that you even listen. I didn't even know that you listened. But I know there are a lot of folks out there who enjoy us during their weekly commute, or, when they're at the gym, or wherever you enjoy the show, whenever you do that. We just want to thank you from the bottom of our bear hearts for supporting us over the last decade, and definitely looking forward to bringing more quality content your way. We're glad you like what we do. And again, don't be afraid to reach out to us on our podcast socials, at MB Podcast on Twitter, or Movie Bears Podcast on Facebook. We will see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.